Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's guest is a legendary superstar whose highly recognizable and extraordinary voice created the signature sound for one of the most popular and beloved vocal groups of all time, Little Anthony and the Imperials. With his smooth, savvy voice that could sing 3 octaves and a falsetto, he's been immortalized in dozens of multi-platinum hit songs, including Tears on My Pillow, Shimmy Shimmy Cocoa Pop,
Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa pop, shimmy, shimmy, pop. Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa pop, shimmy, shimmy, pop. Sitting in a native hut all alone and blue. Sitting in a native hut wondering what to do. Along came a native girl, did a native dance. It is like in paradise, put me in a trance. Going shimmy, shimmy, cocoa pop, shimmy, shimmy, pop.
I'm on the Outside Looking In,
I'm on the outside looking in, and I wanna be back on the inside with you.
Going Out of My Head,
Well, I think I'm going out of my head. Yes, I think I'm going out of my head over you, over you.
Hurt So Bad,
I know you don't know what I'm going through. Standing here looking at you. Well, let me tell you that it's so bad. It makes me feel so sad. It's gonna hurt so bad to see you again.
Take Me Back,
Take me back, I'm begging, please. Take me back, I'm on my knees. For you to scold me, hurt me, hold me. Darling, take me back.
Better Use Your Head,
Better use your head, that's all I'm headed. Better turn around what's headed. Better use your head before it's too late. And I'm gone.
Out of Sight, Out of Mind,
Out of sight, out of mind. So the story goes.
and many more. They were the first contemporary music group to perform at the Copacabana nightclub in New York. And they gave dozens of show-stopping performances on TV, on Ed Sullivan, American Bandstand, Hullabaloo, Shindig, Soul Train, and every talk show and variety show. They were featured in 3 PBS specials, and our guest's amazing voice can be heard on the soundtrack to 11 movies. In 2014, he released his moving and compelling memoir entitled Little Anthony, My Journey, My Destiny, which provides a fascinating look into the man behind the music. And now he's released a highly acclaimed new collection of songs, a 2-volume CD set entitled Little Anthony and the Music, an anthology containing 40 memorable selections, including some of the hits, some that should have been hits, some previously unreleased songs, and his new single, a refreshing R&B take on Billy Joel's New York State of Mind. He has an immensely popular show on Sirius XM 60s Gold, and he will soon be seen in a brand new PBS special entitled The Musician's Green Book, An Enduring Legacy, premiering in December. Our guest received the Rhythm and Blues Foundation's Pioneer Award and was inducted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, the Hit Parade Hall of Fame, the Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame, and the most prestigious of them all, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I am beyond thrilled and extremely honored to welcome the spectacularly talented little Anthony to our show. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, isn't that nice? Hey, can I call you Harvey?
Please do.
Hi, Harvey.
Hi, Anthony. One of the things I find so interesting about you musically is your versatility. You've sung everything from doo-wop to pop to R&B and the great standards in the American Songbook. Who were your musical influences growing up?
Well, you know, that is so vast. Hey, you got a couple of days? Because it's going to take me that long. My mom was a gospel singer, but the Nazareth Baptist gospel singers in the late 30s and 40s. And my dad was a jazz musician. He played with a lot of the big bands of that era. He actually played for a little while with Buddy Johnson and Etta Johnson's orchestra, which is acclaimed. And he also, you know, used to carry me around wherever he was performing. And I got to meet people like Duke Ellington, Count Basie, when I was a very young toddler, so to speak. And so those influences began there. Obviously, in my house, there was a lot of recordings and there was everything in that house. And I can always say with all candor that my music teacher, Mrs. Mannix, was influential as well when I was in elementary school. She opened my mind to music in ways that nobody ever did. When the other kids wanted to go out and play baseball or whatever they wanted to play, I'd always stay in her classroom because I was fascinated with classical music. She would play it, and I'd probably be the only guy there. Everybody else left. And I just loved listening to it. And she promoted me a little bit more until eventually she taught me about the masters. And then I got into all those kind of people, Beethoven, Franz Liszt, Wagner, all the guys.
Your Aunt Bessie used to say that you would grow up to be either a preacher or a performer.
Yeah.
But in a way, Anthony, you grew up to be both, don't you think?
No, I'm not called to be a minister, but I am called to be a singer. And as far as oratory is concerned, my ability to express myself is easy.
Well, you were one of the most successful artists ever to work with the legendary Don Costa. Tell us about the impact he had on your career.
Completely, because what Don did and Teddy Randazzo, who wrote Going Out of My Head and Hurt So Bad and all those wonderful songs, that era that I was with them, which was from 1964 to 1966, was probably the greatest creative time in my entire career, because I transitioned from being a quote unquote doo-wop singer, whatever that means. It was called street corner music. We transitioned from that to what we realized was pop music. Now, the beginning of that transition began with the knowledge of the singers. Now, most of those Imperials, they weren't Imperials. They were we had another name, like a lot of groups, but that was Ernest Wright, Clarence Collins, Tracy Lord, Nathaniel Rogers, Kenny Seymour, a bunch of us. And Kenny Seymour especially was very, very astute in music. So we had a little bit head start on all those kids that came out of the street were singing under the street lamps in Brooklyn, because we were kids who were very interested in all facets of the music. We'd spend time listening to gospel music and getting turned on by that and just listening the way they would do their harmonies. And then we got into pop music with the Freshmen, Hi-Lo's, Four Lads, and Ames Brothers, and on and on and on. that was the beginning of the seed being planted in us that maybe wasn't planted in the other groups at that era of that time. So fast forward, when we ended up with Don Costa and Teddy Randazzo, that already was planted in us. So what they did was cultivate it. Like Don used to tell me, he said, I work with everybody, Sinatra, Tony Bennett, you name it, everybody. And he said, you're a lot like those guys. And he said, I tell you what, I'm going to teach you how to sing. And I got offended by that. Well, I know how to sing, No, he said, I'm going to teach you how to sing. What he meant was learning phrasing and all the things that he learned as an arranger and also working with other artists. For instance, Sinatra, who he worked with, always said, cross your T's. Or if you say the word like and, he would always say and. That means crossing your T's. So when we got with him, he started cultivating something we already began. We didn't know we were beginning it, but he saw it. That's why that marriage with them was so great.
Now, one of my favorite of all your songs is You Only Live Twice, which was supposed to be in the James Bond movie, but at the last minute, they decided to put the Nancy Sinatra version in the movie. Do you know why they didn't use your version?
I don't know. He came up with this idea, but Teddy always would come up. He says, let's do movie themes of that era in the 60s. Fistful of Dollars and all these Clint Eastwood movies and the James Bond music, what I'm saying? Whatever was popular at that time, and music was really prolific at that time. This is the 60s. Some of the greatest stuff in the world was being done in the 60s. Motown, everybody. So he came up with this idea, and we were sitting there, and he said, Shirley Bassey has this thing called Goldfinger. And he said, why don't we do, You Only Live Twice? He felt this was an opportunity to really show how good we really could be if we're given the proper musicians and arrangements and all the kind of things that you didn't get back in those days. We had a mic and a light. That's all we had. It was 4 tracks, 12 tracks. We were working on 24 tracks when it wasn't even popular yet. And we had instrumentation of 45, 50, 60 musicians. Some of the greatest musicians in the world I got to meet. And also so many wonderful stories that I have even today to be able to tell people as I get older. I tell my grandchildren these stories.
Well, and you told them in your book too, which was tremendous. I learned so much about you. For example, a lot of people may not realize, Anthony, that in addition to being a hugely popular singer, you're a very gifted actor. You appeared in The Jeffersons in 1980. And then in 2006, you co-starred in a wonderful movie called Spiral. You played Mr. B.J. Harley. Do you enjoy acting?
I love it. It's part of who I am. See, most people don't know that, Harvey. You did your homework.
Well, I'm a big fan.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. He's at my age, I'm glad to have anybody to be a fan. But anyway.
Now, wait a minute, Anthony. I was in the audience at one of your concerts about 5 years ago at Casino Rama. It was sold out. I
love that place. Yeah.
It was sold out. And you totally brought the audience to their feet 4 times. There were 4 standing ovations. Yeah. So you have fans, my dear Anthony.
I hope so. But anyway, I believe I do. I see them all the time talking to me like you.
I just wanted to know why they use Nancy Sinatra's version and not yours.
I really don't know, because we don't have any control over what they do. We only record as artists. Maybe today they have more control than we had in those days. I don't know. I know we did a great job, a wonderful job with it. I don't think people expected that, because when we came up, there's a guy in New York, a disc jockey. He was on WNEW, I believe, in New York City. And someone asked him, what was that music like? This is like 1970, 71, 73. And he didn't know what to call it. And so he was just thinking of some of the groups that were coming out in those days, like groups from Jersey, like the Elegants and coming from Staten Island, all those kind of. And, you know, one song had a background that said, do wop do wop do wop do wop do. And he said, oh, it's doo wop. So if you guys didn't know that, that's where it began. But it really wasn't known as that. So I think the people maybe in the industry or whoever the people in control of that sort of thing figured, well, they're just a doo-wop group. They wouldn't be able to handle a movie theme. And the only one understood that we could, and I could, was Don Costa and Teddy Randazzo.
Well, let me ask you this. In the 60s, you were one of the most popular, most successful groups. You had huge hits. Were you ever tempted to go over to Motown?
We were asked to come to Motown a lot. And we had a lot of fans there. I talked to Otis Williams, the last surviving member of the Temptations, all the time. Just talked about a couple of weeks ago. Because I went to the play, and Too Proud to Beg, a very famous hit play on Broadway. They're on the road now with the Broadway Road Show. And we talked a long time about it. He says, man, how long we know each other? I said, 60 years or so. And he said, man, you know, they did everything they could to get you guys to come over there.
Why didn't it happen?
Life, I don't know. We just were involved with other things. We were still recording for United Artists. We were still recording other people. And then by the time that became almost a thought that maybe we should do that. And by the way, it wasn't just Motown. It was Philly International. Gamble and Huff. Gamble told me, man, we try to get you. In fact, they even commissioned Tommy Bell, who wrote all those great stylistic records and all that, and Linda Creed, you know, and all those wonderful writers. They were writing stuff for us to impress us to come with them. And the OJs, who I know a long time, Eddie Levert was saying, man, them cats over there really want you to come over. And I think you should take a trip to Philly and see what's going on.
Well,
So
you know
they were
why
trying.
I asked you about Motown? I always had a fantasy in my mind of you doing a duet with Diana Ross.
Hey, you know, things work when they work. Life tends to do that. I've had people say, how come you wasn't on this thing? And how come you didn't been able to do that? I don't know. It just didn't work out that way. I've known her when she started. In fact, I'll tell you a little story. We worked at theater in Brooklyn in it was early 60s. And they just had started, and they had not Baby Love, something just, they opened for us. Can you imagine that? They weren't stars yet.
Well,
And-
I just think that your voice and her voice would have been magical. You had such an incredible range. When you became really, really famous, how did you handle the celebrity? Did you find it easy to handle the fame?
I think it was easier to handle then than it is this new generation. I feel sorry for them. So much pressure on these kids. I mean, they're totally be starstruck, and they don't even know how to fail, Harvey. I came up in the tail end of vaudeville. I work with the greats, people like Moms Mabley, Red Fox, Flip Wilson, on and on. We were on shows with them at the Apollo Theater, which we called the Chitlin Circuit, that ran from Chicago to Washington to Baltimore. We did that whole circuit with these people for 7 days in one place. We're on tour. So I got to know them and sit and talk with them and pick their brains. And I got a lot of them and their information, knowingly or unknowingly, got into me. So it only made me a better artist.
You were, as a young man, when you listen to your recordings, you really were a musical sponge. You could sing with Ella, you could sing with anyone, you could do the standards, you did R&B, blues.
Yep.
You have quite an amazing range and
Yes.
an amazing versatility. Do you think there's anybody today that even comes close? Because I can't think of anyone who has
Well-
that range of talent musically, I mean.
Well, there were a lot. There was many. I mean, Frankie Lyman and Frankie Lyman team. Frankie Lyman was so gifted, but he didn't live long enough and it didn't work out for him. I can name many, but Nate Nelson, who sang with the Flamingos, him too. He very gifted, had a lot of range. A lot of people, he could sing pop as good as anybody. Well,
I
like you said-
suppose you are already aware, I'm sure, that Sammy Davis Jr. used to tell everyone that little Anthony had the voice that everybody else wanted.
well, he would joke at me like that. He says, man, come here, I can smack you. You got my voice. But Sammy was a very interesting dude, very most talented person I've ever known, outside of Michael Jackson too. I don't know those people, and I got to know them. And then then the fact that I told you earlier about Mrs. Mannix and all those people and singing as a little child, I actually sang gospel. And my sense of music is so vast that most people don't understand that, because they hear you sing a particular thing, shimmy, shimmy, cocoa bop, for instance. They think, well, that's what he does.
No.
Or over the rainbow, whatever the things I did. No, that was what I was doing at that time. So I'm the only person with the group, because there's nobody left in the group. Actually, I work solo most of the time now, but because there's nobody left. But when we were doing it, we were so ahead of the game that we were doing songs and investigating things that no one ever thought of doing, because of our curiosity and because we were in the right place at the right time with the right people.
Well, that's what I love about your new double CD anthology, which I want to ask you about now. It's a real musical masterpiece. I've been listening to it. I've had it now for 2 weeks, and I absolutely love it, Anthony, because you really chose very carefully the songs that you put in that collection.
Yeah, I did. Well, I didn't. Me and Mike Miller. Mike Miller's an old friend. Mike Miller's a Renaissance man. I mean, this guy's got a life that's unbelievable. He was a dean in the high school in the Bronx. He sang, he performed, he wrote music, bada, bada, bing, bada, bang. He was all over the place. I can relate to Mike because we're that kind of people, creative. We always looking, what else can we do? And so I got off the track a little bit, but being with Mike Miller really was just something that was always there. And we were talking, and most people did not know of the many albums we did with Don Costa. We probably did more with Don Costa and Teddy Randazzo than he ever did with Sinatra.
Yes, you did actually. And that's why I wanted to know how you picked the songs to include in this collection, because I mean, it's an amazing collection. You did a version of New York State of Mind. I can't wait to hear you tell us how you decided to do that.
Mike Miller and I just was sitting around at his house, you know, and just talking, just like creative people tend to do when you get them in a room. And we were talking about all these songs. And I told Mike, I said, you know, Jerry Blavat is a very famous disc jockey in Philadelphia. He's known as the Geeter with the Heater. I met Jerry when he used to work with Sammy Davis. He used to work with Sammy Davis. He was his PR man, but he became a disc jockey. And he was saying, man, you did some things with the Teddy and Don Costa, man. I play on my radio show that no one has really thought about or heard. Because again, Harvey, we were ahead of our time. Even with making albums, we were doing stuff like you just said. But at the time, the business itself would not accept that. We were like ahead of ourselves. We were like so far what everybody else was doing, nobody caught on it. They're beginning to do it now. Can you imagine that all these years later going, whoa? Well, that's what happened with these 40 tunes. Jerry Blavat said, man, I get so many requests for songs like Donna Washington tune you did and this one and that one. Oh my gosh. He said, that stuff is great. You need to put that in your show. I said, well, I wouldn't put it in my show, Jerry, because nobody would know what it is. I could sell anything as a performer, as a singer.
Well, you know what I think it is, Anthony? I think that you had so many hits that when people come to your shows, you feel obligated to perform the big hits that everybody knows you for.
Yes.
But the thing is, that was really only the tip of the iceberg of your musical abilities and your musical tastes.
Yes. Totally. You got it right on, Harvey.
And now with this anthology, you finally put out 40 songs that really represent your soul, who you really are as an artist.
Yes. And it there's so much to me, much more than people that realize. Now, it's standard in life. You get a certain age, oh, you're not supposed to go on or whatever to do. First of all, I've been blessed by the God that loves me because he gave me this voice. It's not me. It's not natural, Harvey. It's supernatural.
Well,
Because
you're
I'm
still singing in the same key that
It's
you did when
well,
you were
you know
young.
what, Harvey? I'm good at what I do. I know how to sing. It's my instrument. I don't, when people want me to do two people in a row, all this stuff that I did when I was 17 and 18, for goodness sakes, folks, I'm 81. Everybody changes, even you. But the point is, I've learned how to sing. So I'm able to do that, kind of get around that. Can I hit high C's? All the time. But it's like, I used to live there, but I don't live in that apartment anymore, but I do visit it now and then. So on occasion, I will go up to that note if I need to express the song. But I'd rather stay cool in the little Anthony I am today. I came through 4 different eras, Harvey. The late 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and scratch the early part of the 80s. 4 decades.
With the
And was successful in 3 of them. I was uncharted for 3.
Same vocal range.
Because that's what I was too stupid to know. I have to stop really figure that out. I mean, I'm like a ball player, a football player. Pretty soon, it looks like I'm doing something really wonderful and fast. Jerry Rice didn't get faster as he got older, but yet he got better. But how? Because he looked like he was going really fast. Because he did what? He did all of his routes so perfectly, it looked like he was out running it. He wasn't. He just was out maneuvering people so well with his understanding and his experience that he was able to get better as he go along.
Well, did you take care of your voice and your health?
No, I did not. Like I said, it's a blessing from God because I was like any other rock and roll. What is it? Rock and roll, women, drugs, rock and roll, whatever it is. I'm no different. I was out there blowing it and going crazy. And like I said, as I was given each day of my life, I grew. I began to understand more and more and realize, oh my goodness, this is a gift. I can't mess this up. You know,
it's really an incredible gift that you gave to the world. Now tell me about New York State of Mind. Whose idea was it to record this new version?
Mike, because Billy Joel, I've known Billy a gazillion years when he first started out. And on occasion, if I'm in New York or someplace, because he works at Madison Square Garden, sold out all the time. He has a thing with them. And so I was in town and my publicist said, oh, he says, Billy's in Madison Square Garden. Let's go see him. I'm going to call him up. I'm going to call his people up, his publicists up, find out. Publicist called my man up, George Dashinger, back. I said, man, Billy wants him to come on over. Yeah, come on up to the dressing room and everything. And, you know, VIP. In the beginning, I've always loved what Billy was doing because everybody thought Billy one day had a hit record. He was out of nowhere. He struggled so long. You cannot be realized that when he became a star, he was a much older dude you would imagine. Okay. Billy not that far from me, but he broke out at that particular time because people began to realize what a genius he was and is still.
But what was it about that song that made you
want to record
it?
Mike said, oh, you really dig Billy so much, man. Why don't you do one of his songs or this album where because instead of using the songs that you already did and no one heard before, like your introduction said, songs that were not heard, and you get a chance to hear them, why don't we do something today that shows your vocal range? You had it then, but now show everybody what you have now. And I said, oh, I used to do Just the Way You Are on stage for years, man, back in the 80s. And I don't do it anymore. He says, New York State, and all of a sudden I went, I'm from New York City, man. Oh, yeah, that's a bad tune, I told Mike. Woohoo, Mike, wow, man. And I went back and started listening. And I'm hearing it, I'm going, oh gosh, that's me. I'm a New Yorker. Everything he was talking about, that's me. Now, I've always learned to make songs my own. That's probably the reason why I can go on stage and sing songs that are not my hit records and sell them. Well, that's not by chance, luck, or whatever you want to call it. It's because I understood as an artist, and I learned from other artists, if you could take a song and make it, okay, Sinatra's mantra was, either you sing the song as good, comparable, or better. If you can't do it comparable or better, don't do it. Because I understood that formula, and I was able to go on stage and sing two pop songs in the middle of Shimmy Shimmy Cocoa Pop, and I just go, whoa, what's that? Because I made it my own. The guys and I, when we were doing this, we did Every Breath You Take, Sting, right? Police. We've had people came to us. John Fogerty said, he saw me one day, he said, you do that better than they do. Well, I said, no, it's not that I'm doing better than them. I'm just doing it the way I knew I could do it.
Well, it's more than that, Anthony. It's really more than that. I'm sure you're aware that your songs have been covered by dozens of artists, everyone from Frank Sinatra, Ella, Linda Ronstadt, Johnny Mathis, the McGuire sisters, and even Daft Punk used a portion of your song, Can You Imagine, on one of their albums. How does it feel to have been such an important influence on so many iconic vocalists?
Well, you see that album, it says Little Anthony and the Music? Well, that's what I go by now. Not Little Anthony Imperials. No, it's Little Anthony and Music, because it's about me now. It's this phase of my life, in the twilight of my years, it's just me. The great fun I had with the guys, some of them passed on, some of them retired, but it wasn't the same. Once you lose that formula, that magic of those guys coming up in Brooklyn as kids, and all we knew, that's what made us special. Me as a lead voice, the front man, and them as the background. Once that background changed, any slightest, an audience may not know technically what it is, but they could pick something's different.
Well, okay? It's a different energy, but as long as we had you,
whatever it is, it's different. But here's the deal. I was getting there, but I haven't changed.
Right.
I'm still me.
And you've got all of these great vocalists who still turn to you for influence, the way that you turned to all those greats that you mentioned before.
That's how
I hope that you really appreciate how really beloved you are in this industry and in the music world. Do you?
Well,
you're such a humble man.
I'm flattered when you say that, and I'm also humbled by it. I can say, man, I did some things in this life that I don't even deserve to even hear your accolation.
But Anthony, when a person turns on the radio or turns on their stereo and listens to your voice, it's instantly recognizable. Instant. Yeah. There is no one else that sounds like you.
That's what Mathis told me. He said, every time we know it's you. So, and I said, likewise, I know it's you. Yeah, that is very flattering. And anytime anybody does something, but I go back to the music. You know what, Harvey, it's really not about the artist as much as about the song itself. It's just that the artist can marry the song. Like you got a good marriage or you have a bad marriage. A good marriage is when an artist is married to the great song and the artist can interpret that song. Like Teddy Randazzo once told me, who was a great singer himself, who wrote Going Out of My Head, Take Me Back, Hurt So Bad, all his wonderful songs. He said that when I first met him many years ago, he said to me, I'm writing, he said, but you can understand what I'm writing, because most people don't realize that Teddy was writing about his life. If you notice the pattern of the songs, hit records I had, I'm on the outside looking in. His wife divorced him. Then I'm going out of my head because I miss you so much. I miss you so. Take me back. I, as an actor, remember I said, this is another part of me, can understand the written word of what he was saying. And like Sinatra, they said he understood the written word of the song. I do too.
Well, you know, you talk about the songs being a reflection of life. I mentioned your book in my introduction. It's a very
Yes.
poignant memoir because even though you had a very loving family, you have not had an easy life.
No,
You're a spiritual person and you
Yes.
believe strongly in the power of destiny, don't you?
Yes, yes. I have a God that loves me, the same God that loves everybody, same one. I just tapped into him. And how I did it was through adversity. You know, the thing about adversity, either he's going to kill you or you learn from it. And I learned that I'm not alone. I don't have controls over me. This voice, I didn't wake up one day as a little kid and say, I'm going to sing like this. It just came out that way. Every singer is like that. Every performer, every actor. One of the struggles that most performers and actors have is not having their identity, not understanding who they are first before they're an artist. Because they get to Hollywood and all in places, they just tell them, you're this, you're that, you need this and give that. And you got all these people around them and yes people and no people, you know what I'm saying? They lose who they are. They really are.
How did you manage not to lose the real core, the essence of you, Anthony Gourdine?
Great mother. I had a mom and dad who was persistent. My mother was a godly woman. That woman just praised me right. Something she wouldn't give up. And she knew I was talented. My Aunt Bessie and wonderful aunts that I had. These character bases were put in me as a small child that saved my life. In my later years, I had something to look back at and say, wait a minute, something was right about that. What is it? It isn't corny. It wasn't bad. It was good. So if it was good, why am I living like this? You know? So,
well, tell me something. When I read your book, I got the feeling that it should be made into a movie or a miniseries about your life. Did you ever think of that?
I don't think of it. Other people that came and told me, and I laugh at them sometimes. I said, man, my life could be very vanilla in many ways. I don't think anybody want to hear about that. But they would tell me, no, you need to be heard. Like right now, me being a solo artist now, I could do more things that I've always wanted to do. One of the things that we're working on, my publicist, Phil Brown, is beginning to speak at colleges and universities and wherever they would have me, and about music, the art of music, the art of the human voice. How did you learn how to breathe? How did you learn how to do this? There are a lot of young people out there would like to know that.
Do you feel that you're a good example of resilience, of being a survivor in this business?
Yeah, but I didn't do it on my own. Like I said, it was supernatural. It's just God that loved me, kept me alive, because it wasn't me. Because I had everything in this world not to be. But I'm here. A lot of my peers are not here anymore.
When you say that you did everything not to be, are you saying that you had struggles with trying to reconcile who you were with the little Anthony that the world knew?
I would say 99.9% of human beings on earth struggle with that every day. We all do, Harvey. Everybody has a story, Harvey. Everybody has a story. The thing is I've learned I have an absolute. I know it's not me. So, well, what is it? What is this God that loves me? And he tells me, okay, if you do it this way, your life is going to be a little more focused. You're going to be able to navigate through this minefield called life.
Were there giants in the business besides Don Costa? Were there other big stars that mentored you, that gave you advice?
Oh my gosh, Harvey. That's the amazing thing about my journey. That's why I call it my journey, my destiny. That book, all through my life, Harvey, from day one, my Aunt Bessie, my Aunt Sarah, my Aunt Shorty, my dad, my mom, my Aunt Naomi.
But what about the celebrities? I mean,
Red Fox was like my father on the road. I can go on all day long. Sammy Davis would sit me down and just talk to me. He says, you know what, man? He says, I tell you something. Here's the formula to show business. You start big and you end big, and the middle will take care of itself. If you notice my show, Harvey, how would you open up? Boom. Then we would do all this stuff, and how do we end, Harvey? Boom. Those people, I've had people tell me, it's a shame They're dead, they're dying, we're all going to die. That's a fact. But I said, but they're not dead. In a way, they're still alive in me, because all of those formulas that they told me develop who I am today.
So how do you want to be remembered by the world?
He loved, God loved him, and he loved. I am not afraid of the gospel of Jesus Christ, y'all. I know what saved my life and what developed me. I don't even want to, I don't want to hear about it. I don't care. I understand why I'm here talking to you this very moment. So I can tell people, hey, everybody, this is who I really am. And there's more. I'm not finished. There's no age here. There's nothing to do with it. I can prove that. Look at Tony Bennett. Tony Bennett sang to Just Up a couple of years ago. Yeah. And the only reason why he stopped, it wasn't because he lost his voice, is because he had some dementia problems. And his family felt the road could beat you up. It's just too much for their dad. Now at 97, now he is.
Are you planning to tour again?
Well, I'm touring coming up next month. I'm going on a tour with Three Dog Night and all that, and a bunch of people.
Isn't that amazing? That's so exciting. I want to tell our viewers that you can order the new double CD, Little Anthony and the Music, an anthology, by going to the website harmonystreet.biz.
Yes.
And for more information about Little Anthony and the Imperials, visit their website, littleanthonyandimperials.org. You can also follow Little Anthony on his Facebook page, which is showing now on your screen. Well, Anthony, I must tell you, it's been a huge honor having you on our show. I wish you the best of luck with the double CD and with all your upcoming projects and your tour. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Well, thank you so much, Harvey, for your kindness, and for I call brothers and sisters in Canada. As I said at the Casino Rama, hey, I got Canadian blood. Actually, you do.
We love you here. The world.
I miss getting up there. I don't know why. Hey, somebody book me.
Our guest has been the legendary music superstar, Little Anthony. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you to our producer, Steve Silver. Thank you to my wonderful management team, Rick and Robin Marcelli, and to my team in the UK. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.